afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host,
I'm
shall I?
dreading it.
Do you know that on this day in 1952, Mr. T was born? My co-host does not like Mr. T because he was so mean to Mr. Balboa in Rocky 3. So to show her disrespect to Mr. T, she refers to Mr. T as simply T. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
I'm doing great. It's also eat more fruits and vegetables day, which I disagree with. I think vegetables are toxic by and large for you, and fruit is just sugar and fiber, none of what you need in your diet, actually. But it is also Emergency Medical Services for Children Day.
No,
and I know this,
how did I miss that?
David, I have no idea, but that's what it is. And I know you really want to talk about that later on in the show because apparently the perennial Hamas protesters don't seem to care about medical emergencies of children, particularly an 8-year-old who was stuck in traffic. So we'll talk about that, but let's get into the housekeeping stuff, the rules of the show, and then let's plow right into the day. So if you are watching us over on Rumble, you're supporting a great free speech platform. If you're doing that, if you'd like to support our work on Rumble, because as you know, we'll never take a penny from Mark Carney to do the work that we do, you can leave us a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, it is mandatory for us to read it on air. If it's under that, we do our very best, time permitting, to get to it. And I really do mean our very best. If you are watching us on the censorship platform of YouTube, I get it. But it is, you should know, it is still a censorship platform. There are some things that we just can't even publish over there. So if you want the full uncensored version of Rebel News, you are going to get it on Rumble and not on YouTube. But if you want to support our work over there, you can leave a super chat. That's their paid chat. Or you can leave a super thanks. That's their after the fact paid comment. So this is past Sheila talking to future viewers. If you like us but you missed the live stream, you can support us by leaving that super thanks. So I think that's it. One more thing before we move on. I want to make sure that everybody knows about, particularly our Western Canadian viewers. We have already done a series of town halls, 2 of them, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary, completely sold out, on Western separation, whatever that looks like, whether it's sovereignty association, you want to be your own country, you want to be a territory of the United States, you want to stay within the Commonwealth. It's for us to talk about and for us to decide. And we're not going to be told to shut up by the people who are part of the problem. We have another event that we are planning. It's June 2nd in Regina. 6 p.m. Emergency Regina Town Hall. It's at the Turnvee Convention Center, 100 Armour Road. Starts at 6 p.m. It's usually 2.5 hours. We're there. We're bringing in experts who can hopefully answer some questions. And the other experts are also, I think, paying close attention to this, so they know what you're thinking about. They want to hear the objections so that they can answer those objections and hopefully overcome them. Because I think in all my 4+ decades in Alberta, I think the tide of Western separatism has never been higher. And I think for a lot of people, this was their one last moment of faith in Canada, and Canada obviously snatched that hope from them by rewarding 10 years of Liberal failure and corruption with another term for Mark Carney, just shuffling the faces, but all the problems stay the same. So if you want tickets, and it's only $5, so this is not cost prohibitive, but do not sit and think about it, because this will sell out, and it will sell out fast. It's already selling. Go to donegetingscrewed.com to get your tickets today.
Well, Sheila, I got to tell you, I'm 3 provinces away from Wild Rose Country, and I do get that whiff, even being so isolated here in central Canada, that this is a very much a real thing. I liked how you speculated what independence would look like. Would it be Alberta or Saskatchewan as an independent nation? Would it be sovereignty association? Would it be part of a 51st state scheme with the U.S.? Well, why not all of it combined as we head into June? Why can't we have Alberta and Saskatchewan as nation fluid? How does that work? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, So, and secondly, as you well know, I cannot join you for the Saskatchewan event as much as I want to, because I am contractually obligated to stay away from Regina.
Yes,
anyway.
You are. You can't talk about this. You almost got us both in serious trouble, and I was just an innocent bystander last time. But if Alberta were to leave, the dominoes would begin to fall across much of the rest of this country. Saskatchewan is our fraternal twin. They are experiencing the exact same problems as Alberta is. In fact, we go back and forth between who is more separatist. More recent polling says it's us again, but Saskatchewan could overtake us again. I think we're on that race to 50% between the two of us. And I think large parts of the interior of BC and northern BC, which should have always been Alberta, by the way, Fort St. John, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even parts of Manitoba. I think it'll cause a domino effect. But as I said in the gun show this week, Alberta is not just a geographical location. It is a way of thinking, and which means there are a lot of Albertans in this country right now.
And you know what, Sheila, if we're talking about the 51st state, or if it's Alberta and Saskatchewan, let's call them the 51st and 52nd state. If I'm Donald Trump, that's what I want. I want
you don't want everybody.
Yeah, you want resource-rich provinces, whether it's potash or oil and gas, and those two provinces as states, those are electoral votes for life for the Republican Party. Yeah. If you want the Laurentian elites as part of the United States of America, those are, that's Democrat votes in the Electoral College. Why do you want that? You might never get a Republican government.
And we just saw how those bad voters in the rest of the country can overtake the will of everybody else, right? Like we just saw that. See, I don't know why the Americans would invite that upon themselves, bringing another California into the union. It just doesn't make any sense.
You know what, Sheila, this is a very important point, because Lady Menzoid is still on meltdown mode from April 28th. It's actually straining the marriage, I gotta tell you.
You guys might have to move. You're gonna have, like I said, Alberta is a way of thinking, and that woman is an Albertan.
Oh, in so many ways. But here's she has now come to despise our political system, the parliamentary system. She would love it if we had a republic and if we had electoral college votes, because the founding fathers in America, this is exactly why there's an electoral college, because they didn't want big cities on either coast dictating the political agenda for all of America. What are your thoughts on that? If you had your way, it's a completely hypothetical question that, and will never come to fruition. Are you still a fan of the parliamentarian system, given what we saw on April 28th, or would you like a republic in this nation?
Well, I'm not sure that I want a republic, but I think there has to be some sort of hybrid system that it addresses these structural inequities. I think Australia has a bit of a hybrid system when it comes to this stuff, but as an Albertan, I'm sure you can pick up that I am putting down that there are some major problems with how the parliamentary system distributes power in this country. So I think I'm not sure I want to be a republic. I kind of like the pomp and circumstance and tradition. And as a conservative, what are we conserving if we throw everything out the door, including our history as a British colony? but there has to be a different way. There must be a different way than what we've got, because what we've got is broken.
And, Sheila, I got to tell you, as much as Lady Menzoid would fit in well politically in Alberta, climatically, it's a non-starter. She's originally from South Africa. She's never been warm, even in central Canada, since she came here. Don't ask me how I know this, but even on a hot summer day, her inner thigh feels like a Lake Ontario trout in
That's
February.
more of something to do with, I bet that has more to do with who's touching it than the weather.
How dare
David.
you? So, if global warming is a thing and you can become wine country again, or like the climate when the dinosaurs were romping all over Edmonton and Calgary, maybe then there's hope. But I don't think we'll live that long.
You know what? I'll start rolling coal right now just to see what I can do to help you out. Before we get into also the meat and potatoes of the day, we should talk about our Star BC reporter.
Yes.
Roughing it in BC. Although it's not all that rough. That little camper van is pretty nice. She's got Starlink on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And I know that, like we love our RV missions in this company. Although Drea, she's like, I'm black. I'm not cut out for camping.
Wait a
what
minute.
she said in her video.
Camping is a racial thing? You got to clue me in on this.
You'll see in her video. But anyway, she says she's just not meant to be cold. And as a lower mainland British Columbian, although I think she was born in Alberta, she's just like, I'm not cut out for this. But she is in a decently a decent camper van with appropriate accoutrement for what she's doing. And she's covering the Universal Ostrich Farm, who are waiting now for the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, to come and cull 400. I did the math. I think this is $500,000 worth of livestock. And these are not birds. These ostriches are not bound for the food system. These are not for human consumption or even cowboy boots. These are birds that are used for research in avian flu, for COVID, because of their natural immunities. So at some point, the flock had been exposed through some way, probably through wild birds, migratory birds, to avian flu. Now they're healthy and they carry the antibodies. But because they had been once exposed, the CFIA is coming to kill them. And the municipality has done its best to help by saying, okay, well, you're going to kill 400 birds. You can't throw them in our dump. What are you going to do about it now? As a way to step in and stop it. So they've tried going through the courts. Now the CFIA is coming. And this, as a farmer and other farmers across the country, you should be mortified. Because when you see things like the pandemic bill that died in the Senate when prorogation was called, they were already describing animal agriculture as pandemic vectors to be dealt with. So, and we have the same kookaloos being elected back into power. We should all be very, very worried about this government overreach and where it will lead at Universal Ostrich Farm. So if you want to support Drea, because she is there on the ground, she's camping there in a camper van. You can go to savetheostriches.com. We worked it out, and the camper van is actually cheaper than renting a car, driving 8 hours, then going back and forth between a motel up the road, which would not put her on location if the CFIA did an early morning raid. So she's there on the grounds. She's not leaving. She's roughing it. And as she said in her video, she's not particularly cut out for this, but she's doing her best.
Sheila, everything you said about the history of those ostriches is 100% true. The bottom line, it is now a very healthy flock of birds, big birds. Here's the question. What is the unspoken reason for this government overreach? What is motivating this wannabe jihad against perfectly healthy birds. I can't connect those dots. What are your thoughts?
Well, wouldn't you know it? These birds are part of a research project with Japan's Kyoto University, and they've already been successfully extracting antibodies from these birds' eggs to advance avian flu vaccination and studies. But wouldn't you know it, $519 million has gone to Moderna now to develop an mRNA vaccine against bird flu. So it sounds like the government and governments would like Big Pharma to do this work in their own way with an mRNA vaccine, as opposed to a vaccine derived from the antibodies of birds that have recovered from exposure to it.
I think it's the only thing that makes sense. Because if they're, and Sheila, I got to point out the perverse irony at play here. Talk about a tale of two species. Here we have perfectly healthy ostriches in BC that the government seems hell-bent on killing. And I wonder how they're going to kill them and how they're going to, what the logistics are.
These birds are huge. Where are you going to put 400 bird carcasses immediately? Because you can't have them just then all of a sudden you have a mountain of dead bird carcasses. Guess what that is? A disease vector. So I don't know what they're going to do. This is going to have to, even more horrifically, slow and drawn out.
And didn't you say earlier that the landfill operator says you're not putting them here?
Right.
So where do they go?
Them. Exactly. I don't know what they're supposed to do.
I don't know if
they have.
Oh, go ahead, Sheila.
Look at this. Like, where are you going to put all these birds once they're dead? Do you take them one at a time to the local crematorium? Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with them. I guess technically they'll be biohazard waste. Do you take them to the hospital? Because most hospitals have an incinerator where they burn your tumor once it's been cut out of you. I just, what is the point of this? I don't even like ostriches. I don't. They're them and llamas. I could not like these animals less.
Yeah, Sheila, don't forget about panda bears on your list of animals. You might be the only person on the planet that doesn't love pandas.
It's not that I dislike pandas. I think they're stupid because they are former carnivores. Their digestive system is not designed to eat bamboo, but yet they only eat bamboo. It makes them sick and docile. And I really dislike them because the Chinese government uses them as forced diplomacy. And when they kidnapped the two Michaels, I thought, let's kidnap their pandas and then eat them. But I was the only person who wanted to eat a panda, even though I think it would be gristly. But yeah, I don't actually even like ostriches, but I am so disgusted by the government overreach that all of a sudden they're becoming endearing to me. I kind of like their stupid little face, their strangleable necks, and their stupid beaks. I don't know what it is. They're becoming charming to me. And I think even if you don't like ostriches, even if you're not a farmer who thinks, okay, well, my cattle are next. Well, your house pet might be next too, by the way. But this is the government saying that they can just do whatever they want at the end of the day with your property, even if it isn't a problem. And also, just to add to your point about why would the government be doing this? Well, these birds are a good reminder that natural immunity to something exists. And we just spent 4 years pretending it doesn't.
Yeah, we can't have these conspiracy theories get out to the general populace. But Sheila, to complete my thought about a tale of two species, so on the left coast, we have perfectly healthy ostriches that are harming no one. And in the city of Toronto, downtown Toronto, Liberty Village condo complex, we have an invasion of coyotes. We've had 5 animals killed. We've had numerous close encounters with humans, including a mother, and I can't imagine the terror, whose infant in a stroller there was a standoff between them and a coyote. And what do we do here? Do we bring in some hunters and take care of the coyote problem? No. The City of Toronto launches a PR campaign. It's since those signs have been taken down due to international ridicule, and it was words to the effect, Sheila, as you know, I am your coyote neighbor.
You're right.
Humans and dogs frightened and confused. Oh, so we're the problem, right? And the problem, of course, Sheila, for the proliferation of the coyotes in Liberty Village and Fort York is there are no apex predators for them. They are the apex predator.
Yeah.
In the wild, it would be bears, wolves, and mountain lions. You know what, Sheila? Can I take that back? I don't want to give the city an idea. Right. Hey, boss, why don't we bring in bears, mountain lions, and wolves to Liberty Village? That'll take care of those coyote varmints.
Yeah, I'm the apex predator when it comes to coyotes. Yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid. And just all of it is so unscientific, and treating coyotes like they are an endangered species is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard as a Westerner. All this reminds me of how culturally incompatible we are with you, because we wouldn't put up signs that, you know what, in Alberta, if we put up a sign that said coyote hotspot, it would be full of shotgun pellets by the end of the day.
And you know, Sheila, for those that are saying, oh, come on, they're just big dogs, really, don't you love? I love dogs. I have a golden doodle, Sir Gregor. I love him like a member of my own family. Here's the problem for Part B, folks, if you haven't heard, but you can only relocate wild animals 1 kilometer away. 1 kilometer in any direction from Liberty Village, you're still in downtown Toronto. That's why, Sheila, if this journalism shtick ever fizzles out, I'm becoming one of those guys that, hey, you got raccoon problems? Call me. I'll get them out of your chimney or your attic. And guess what? I have to, by law, release them 900 meters away. Guess what? The raccoon somehow finds its way back. The homeowner goes, hey, Menzo, you'll never believe it. I've got more raccoons in my chimney. I won't tell him this. Yeah, it's the same one. He just waddled back. Right. Cash for life, Sheila.
A coyote range is up to 10 kilometers.
Wow.
Like, so you can relocate them a kilometer away and like they can see home from there. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever. If journalism doesn't work out for me, I'm going to become a coyote consultant for the City of Toronto, where I show up, I charge $500,000, I kick a few rocks, I look around and say, yeah, we got to kill these guys. And I'll just take my check. Because at the end of the day, that is what happened with the coyotes in Toronto.
Indeed. Literally, while we were editing that report, the city plucked 2 coyotes out of the pack. I don't know how they identified them as being the problematic ones. But anyways, the solution was, a bullet. They are now dead on arrival. But there's still more. And so
sure.
Are we going to all pretend we're neighbors? And
no, and they're particularly aggressive this time of year because they have pups in the den.
That's right. And where we were, Sheila, as you know, was an off-leash park, and it was filled especially with little dogs. You may as well build a mandarin for coyotes, right? It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Right.
And they're getting more emboldened. They're coming out in the daytime now.
Yeah.
And so, either we somehow get an exception to that wildlife rule and we can bring them up to remote northern Ontario, or we have to call them, I'm sorry.
Blast them.
Pardon me?
Just blast them. Those coyotes too, like the more contact they have with people and other animals, as Ralph Wiggum once said, they're learning. So they're just going to get worse and worse. We've got to get moving on. Although if people want to support Dre's work, it's savetheostriches.com. Yes. You'll get to see some sneak peeks inside her van life that she's living for this week. Let's get ahead to Canada spiraling towards a recession. dragging the rest of us with it. So we'll bleed 100,000 jobs,
Wow.
says the TD chief economist. And I guess though all those job losses, they'll drive up the unemployment rate in Toronto even beyond 10%. But
Yep.
how do you deal with unemployment? Well, you could send home all those temporary foreign workers, but
100%.
we're not going to do that. We're just going to unemploy Canadians.
And we're going to bring new ones in still.
Yeah, of course.
This is really dire, Sheila, and I can tell you,
I
I've
know.
spoken to some young people. It used to be, we're getting to the stage, school's ending, they're going to get a part-time job. They can't find anything. I spoke to somebody, she had applied to 60 and we're talking, fast food restaurants, retail. Not a single application did she get a call back on. And part of the reason is what was traditionally summertime employment for young people. A lot of those foreign workers and international students have those jobs now. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And also, I'm just digging it up, but there, oh, here we go. Yeah, this is exactly what you're talking about. Young people struggling to land summer jobs amid toughest labor market in decades. Now, there's an extra layer here that not a lot of people are talking about, and it's called the Economic Mobility Pathways Pilot. And this is through Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which connects employers with new Canadians. And what will happen is that the businesses are then funded. They get a top up of the salaries of the new Canadians that they hire. So why would you hire a Canadian?
Indeed.
So that's what's happening. It's like for unskilled worker. So these are exactly the jobs that we're talking about here that should be going to Canada's young people. And again, I'm not against immigration, but we can't unemploy an entire generation of people looking to get job skills for the sake of virtue signaling about how we're an open borders country. This isn't fair to anybody. It creates a slave underclass of people in our country, which I'm reliably informed by the left they're against slavery. Well, then why are you doing this? It drives wages down for everybody, and it sets everybody up for failure.
And yet there are certain people in the Liberal Party who fantasize about Canada's population by the end of the century, which is just 75 years away, of being 100 million. And, Sheila, I kind of forget about 2100. What about 2040? Remember just before the election, that Privy Council report was released depicting a dystopian future for Canada in which the rich have either fled the country or live in gated communities with security, and the rest of us illegally hunting and foraging just to have food on our belt. 15 years away, Sheila.
Right, you guys are going to be eating mangy old coyotes in Toronto.
Yeah, there's the plus side.
Hopefully, we will thus be unshackled from the anchor known as Confederation out here in the West. David, you were talking about how your wife is from South Africa, and I just want to quickly change lanes really fast because this just broke. As you know, the left has lost its mind while also simultaneously meeting refugees that they actually don't like. By that I mean white farmers from South Africa who are facing discrimination, murder, and expropriation without compensation of their land. And these people have been there since the 1600s. If you are not indigenous to the land after like 4,500 years, what are you, by the way? Like, when does it tick over? But President Trump just directly confronted the president of South Africa with videos of his government calling for white genocide. And we've got a couple of videos here. This is exactly what this guy deserves. And the left, you should see this, because the discrimination against innocent white farmers in South Africa is atrocious. It is disgusting. And it is right for the Americans to bring these people in as refugees. They are absolutely refugees from discrimination and danger. They're not even economic migrants.
Not according to the left, Sheila. These are white supremacists you're bringing into America. It's unbelievable.
Let's watch, though, because this is why the world needs Donald Trump, because he's not scared. He's sitting there in his gilded palace, and he is not scared. He knows the United States is the big dog, and you're going to listen. So let's watch this, because this guy deserves this completely.
Turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. We don't ever want to do. We can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Namaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Pa, pa.
The man of DJ in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Suri will not be touched. They will be touched, no one. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
Shoot to kill. Namaza. Kill the brewer, the farmer.
Okay, I think that's good, because we've got another clip to show after this. So Trump has compiled about 4 minutes of prominent South Africans, including politicians, calling for the murder of white farmers for the crime of being productive farmers, feeding the country. What happens when you murder and kill all the farmers? What do you think happens there?
Oh,
You're going to have yourself a Holodomor style famine. Not that anybody cares. By the way, these people have real problems there. The unemployment rate is 43% in South Africa. This is after turning over the country to the socialist race baiters. That's not fixed. You cannot blame the problems of South Africa on the white farmers. They are not in power. They haven't been in power in a generation and a half. You're in charge, and you have 43% unemployment rate. And what's your solution? Kill the people feeding us. I can't wait to see how this works out.
Well, Sheila, you don't have to rely on conjecture when you say what happens. We know what happens right next door in Zimbabwe when Robert Mugabe took over that nation. And there was a white farmer replacement program. Mugabe was rewarding his thugs in the army with promises that you would get land. And they got land. They got farmland. Here's the problem. These thugs didn't know how to farm. And very, very quickly, Zimbabwe went from the breadbasket of Africa to being an annual recipient of food aid. That's what happens. This is not a black-white issue. This is when you take away skilled farmers and put people in charge that have no idea about agriculture. And guess what? The crops don't grow and the people go hungry. So good for Donald Trump for outing this guy. This guy is no Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela is rolling in his grave, Sheila. I mean, I've been to South Africa. I visited Robben Island, where that remote prison where Nelson Mandela spent 21 years of his life. It is a miracle he didn't come out of that prison filled with hatred and revenge.
Sure.
But it wasn't that way. He wanted all South Africans, black, white, Asian, you name it, to get along, to get rid of apartheid and not pursue revenge, but go towards an optimistic future. But now this is about revenge.
This is suicidal revenge.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We've got another clip of Trump, because then he put it to the South African president, or rather a reporter did, saying, do you denounce what you saw there? Because it wasn't necessarily him. It was an avowed communist holding these massive stadium rallies. So it's not like this is a fringe thing. This is what they are crafting legislative policy around in South Africa, taking land away from white farmers in the name of, like I said, suicidal revenge for something that they didn't do. So let's hear what Trump has to say.
So you denounced that type of language in the video that you saw?
Oh yes, we've always done so. As government, as my own party, we are completely opposed to that. We, in 1955, adopted a document which said South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
But why wouldn't you arrest that man? That man said, kill the white farmers, kill the white farmers. And then he danced, and he's dancing, and it's kill the white farmers. I'm not sure, but I think if somebody got up in Parliament and started saying kill a certain group of people, he would be arrested very quickly. That man is going all over South Africa, and that's not a small party. That was a stadium that holds 100,000 people, and I hardly saw an empty seat. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of representation. And those crosses, we have dead white people, dead white farmers, mostly. And you take a look at Australia, they're being inundated, and we're being inundated with people that want to get out. And their farm is valueless, it's valueless, and they just want to get out with their life. And this is a very serious situation.
He's right. He's right. These farmers are walking away from everything. They know their land is going to be expropriated anyway, but rather than stay, they're leaving to be safe. And the left, the Democrats, to their credit, they finally met a refugee they don't like.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's too bad they're not gang members with MS-13
exactly.
and wife beaters. That's who the Democrats cotton on to. And I got to tell you, when President Trump says when you focus on a certain group of people and you want them killed, you're going to be arrested. Oh, President Trump, not in Toronto. For 19 months, we've had genocide chanted against the Jewish people, and the cops, the mayor, Chief Demke. Nothing to see here, folks, and we'll get into that later, I think, after the break. But he's absolutely right. And by the way, I want to just,
before we move on, I want to stop and show you. Look at these refugees waving American flags. They're already patriotic Americans because they want to be free and they want to be safe. They're not economic migrants. These are people who, by virtue of their skin color, their life is at risk. And calling for their death has become culturally normalized. They are treated as less than where they're from as a reaction to the actions of people who are not them. And again, the left looks at those people and says, look at those white supremacists. They don't know anything about them, by the way. They just know that they're white from South Africa, so they've got to be horrible.
You know, it's such a shame, Sheila. South Africa, like so many African countries, the promise that's there in terms of mineral wealth, in terms of agriculture, in terms of the potential for tourism.
For sure.
I mean, you look at all the incredible wild animals they have there for these safaris, and yet this is the climate there. Forget about white farmers being expropriated. The crime, the violent crime in South Africa. Lady Menzoid has a relative a few years ago. One thing you don't want to do when you go there, folks, don't wear any jewelry, because that is an attention seeking magnet. And she was confronted to remove her wedding ring. And when it couldn't get off because her finger was too chubby, the assailant took out a machete. He was going to cut off the finger or the full hand, and she was only saved when somebody on an apartment balcony started screaming hysterically, and that scared off the bandit. For a wedding ring, she was going to face amputation of a limb. And this is a regular occurrence. So it is such a shame that my wife's, her place of her birth, is descending into this hellhole now.
Yeah. None of it has to be this way. This isn't racial justice, what we're seeing here. But when you hear the people on the left scream for racial justice, this is what they mean. They look at countries like South Africa and say, yeah, like that. We want that. When they say we're going to take the land, we're going to take what's ours, that's what they mean right there.
Yeah. And by the way, Sheila, what was the reason my wife's family in 1976 moved from South Africa to Canada?
Let me guess, apartheid.
It was, yes. Yeah. They were disgusted with it, and they decided to give up their livelihood. It was a huge sacrifice. They were living large. And by the way, interesting story. Their two destinations they narrowed it down to were Los Angeles and Toronto. And they came to Toronto in the month of July. And they went, what's with this winter wonderland stuff? It's hotter here than it is in Johannesburg. We don't need to bother with LA. And then winter came. So what I'm saying is that I never would have met the future Lady Menzoid had they come to Toronto in January, but it was July, so the rest is history.
Like so many immigrants, they were misled by the promise of Toronto. Some things never change. Let's hit an ad break, and then we'll talk really quickly about the missile defense Golden Dome and how Canada is potentially joining that. And then we'll talk about crime in Toronto, including the fact that it is Children's Health Care Day. But you wouldn't know it if you're dealing with the Hamas losers in Toronto.
Yep.
Okay, we'll be right back.
We vote, they ignore us. Alberta's values just don't match Ottawa's, and they never will.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again, and that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat, please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again. Sheila, very quick question regarding the first advertiser, the Alberta Republican Party. Is the Alberta Republican Party in any way affiliated with the Republican Party of Canada? Remember that during the COVID crazy years?
No, I don't think so. I think the idea of the Republican Party of Alberta is to never be associated with anything to do with Canada ever again.
I can't blame them.
Yeah, so I don't think the two are affiliated. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. You know, there was a real cast of characters going on during COVID, right?
We should have made a documentary about that. I mean, it was like, you know, some of the characters, it was like Arkham Asylum had a jailbreak, okay? And I remember the Alberta Republican Party. I can't remember the fellow's name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but at one point he was floating the idea of adopting Chris Sky. Do you remember?
Oh, that wasn't the Alberta one. That was the
Canadian Republican Party.
Canadian
Sorry.
One. Yeah,
yes.
I forget his name, but yes, he was. And then there was a falling out.
Yeah.
And I just watched all the drama on the sidelines. I'm like, I'm not picking sides. I just am watching this like a TV show, like a reality TV show. It's sort of like The Bachelor. I just was like, everybody's going to get fighting. And I hope, I was just cheering for mutually assured destruction. And all of it, I was like, you know what? Fight it out.
Pretty much
Royal
got
Rumble.
your wish.
I guess I did. Okay, let's touch real quick on the Liberals and the elbows up crowd. Elbows up, everybody. The relationship is over between the United States. It's never going to be the same. We can't trust them anymore. Yeah. Oh, would you like to join our missile defense system? Sure thing. Thanks, boss. We'll do. You're very transformative, Mr. Trump, which is basically what Mark Carney just pulled on everybody. How you like them apples, Liberal voting Toronto boomers?
Yep.
I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So, as usual, we help Canada do the best we can.
As usual.
This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that. But including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles, all of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the one big beautiful bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed.
And Sheila, it is money well spent in this planet that is becoming more and more a hostile neighborhood. And by the way, I should point out, that's not Donald Trump bragging or suggesting falsely that Canada wants to be part of that. When that press conference broke, mainstream media reached out to the Prime Minister's office. It took them 3 hours to get back, but when they got back, they confirmed, yes, we are part of that. This is part of our NORAD commitments. And I think that's a good thing, Sheila, because the world is becoming an increasingly hostile place. We know that Iran is working diligently to, get a nuke. I think they already might have hypersonic missile technology. And you put those two together, and that is multiple 9/11s. So good on President Trump for carrying forth Ronald Reagan's legacy. And I remember back in the 80s, Sheila, how Reagan was mocked by the left, mocked by the media. Star Wars. But you and I were in Israel. We saw the Iron Dome. We saw
awesome.
if that Iron Dome isn't there, most of Israel isn't there right now.
Right. I just think it is funny that these talks started a little while ago. And in the meantime, Mark Carney has been saying, the current relationship as we know it with the Americans is over. We can't trust the Americans anymore, was one of the things that they said. We cannot trust them. What do we do when the relationship is broken and the trust is gone? Enter into a missile contract with them? I feel like this is a pretty good signal that the Americans are not the hostile jerks that the Liberals were constantly painting them to be, but they did it for cynical political reasons. And I guess to that end, it worked.
And Sheila, here's my question for you. You're 100% right. What is the over-under timeline? I think it's 6 months when all the Leaside Lucies in North Toronto who voted for Carney for being the next generation Captain Canuck saving Canada with his elbows up, which, by the way, is a stupid phrase. That's a dirty play in hockey. But
also, it's how you're leaving your soft underbelly exposed. That's stupid.
But Sheila,
you're being stupid.
When do the majority of people that got hoodwinked by Carney's...
Oh, never.
No, I think...
You think they'll come to you?
Pardon me?
You think they'll come out of this? I believe that they're in the throes of the late stages of a cult where they're just the ones who were going to leave have left already.
Some are, but I think the ones who were going to vote, Polyev, I think it's a 6-month honeymoon period. I really do. And when you see one failed promise after another and nothing getting better, and you just read that jobs report, and Carney thinking, a budget, big deal. What's the rush for a budget? Aren't you a banker? You're not going down the budget will balance itself route again.
Haven't these Liberals said that we are in an existential crisis?
Yes.
An emergency. And it's such an emergency that Parliament isn't sitting. You replaced your leader, ran an election, and are not issuing a budget until the fall. Maybe it's not the emergency that you liars said it was. I don't know if people are going to leave the Carney cult, because I feel like the ones that are there are real indoctrinated. They're seeing this stuff of Carney being completely deferential and sucking up to Trump during that meeting, and then they see stuff like this and they're like, see, he's getting stuff done. Look at him get stuff done. He's driving a real hard bargain. And it's hard bargain? I would love to go to Mark Carney's garage sale, because I would bring home everything for free, completely.
Sheila, to your point about, the Canada, according to the Carneyites, being under an existential threat for the U.S., for two reasons. This is why, if I were the Liberal government right now, we sit right through summer, because A, there's a hell of a lot of work to get done, and B, for their own self-serving political optics. See how hardworking we are? We're not even taking summer holidays off.
We've got our
Doug
noses
Ford did
to
that.
The grindstone. Yeah.
In 2018, Doug Ford had Queen's Park sitting all through the summer, back when Doug Ford represented promise, and he looked like a conservative. And boy, do a lot of conservatives have buyer's remorse over that. But I think that's what they should be doing. Because if it's an existential threat, as you say, was that all just part of the, flim-flam con game that you gave Canadians back in April? Looks like it to me now.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. And in the meantime, out west, while you guys are going to run some sort of atrocious $500 billion debt in Ontario and no budget federally, over in Saskatchewan, they're leading the country in employment gains and economic growth. And so can you understand, friends at home, why the West does not want to be chained to the anchor
100%.
of Ottawa? like you see this and you're like, yeah, we could be okay without like what. Again, I remind anybody who is like, Sheila, you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. You should be a proud Canadian. I'm open. I'm open to that. Just give me a reason.
Yeah.
That isn't sentimental.
To those critics, Sheila, I would say it's not Sheila leaving her country. It is her country leaving Sheila and millions of other Albertans. And how do you, for Saskatchewan, what's the plural of that?
Saskies.
So, I was going to say Sasquatches, but I think that's a mythical.
I wish. Saskatchewanians, I guess, but they just call themselves Saskies, knowing full well that it is difficult for the rest of the world to say it. And I'm not saying I'm a separatist, but I think this is a question for Albertans and Saskies and maybe our friends in the interior of BC to decide for themselves, and people are not going to tell them to shut up because they've been doing that for, I don't know, about 120 years here in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So anyway.
By the way, speaking of Saskatchewan, I can tell you from some stand-up comedian friends I know, Sheila, if you're ever touring in the U.S. and you're bombing, fall back on some sort of a joke that involves the punchline, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's all the hard Ks. It brings the house down every time.
Really?
It almost sounds vulgar.
We have a breaking update from Drea. On the scene. And this is why it's so important that she's there. Because she would not be able to get from the hotel, the closest hotel, you have to take a private ferry to get to the road. So she had to be on location. Breaking Ostrich Farm news. CFIA, or at least authorities, have arrived at the Ostrich Farm.
Wow.
Let's hear from Drea.
While I was working on the camper, Dre Humphrey reporting from Universal Ostrich Farms. It appears authorities may be present. Others are running as well to the entrance of the camp and farm to see if they have come for the 400 ostriches. And it looks as though they have. I'm going to switch the camera angle now. If you're unfamiliar with this story, we have all the details at SaveTheOstriches.com. Essentially, the state appears to be here. I'm going to stop talking and film.
But this is like, in politics, there's not very much that they can all agree on, but they're all agreeing that the ostriches need to be saved. So it's kind of cool. But anyways, so welcome to have a wellness check. I know that people are on edge. If we can even do the wellness check outside of the perimeter, people don't like weapons. Yeah. It's a weapon, because weapons, obviously, we're really passionate about that to everybody, that there's no weapons. Yeah. And so I want to keep it that way because it's important for our leadership to make sure that message stays clear. So, and I think I'll get a hold of Mom and make sure she's coming. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you guys. And obviously, and you Paul, again. You've always done so much help. You've helped us through a few things here. So anyways, I'll get to Mom and everything's good. So these are our liaisons, please, and we want to give them a round of applause because we want their support, and we want them. They know what we're going through, and we want. If it's just a wellness thing, I want to have faith that you guys are really just here doing that, and that you guys you want to see the best thing come out of this too.
Yeah.
And
we've been given no instruction to do anything but to talk to you guys.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Don't go home with numbers. Say there's 400 people here. Please.
Or they're just asleep.
Yeah, okay, I think that's good.
They're in their tents.
I think that's good. It's a 10-minute video. You guys can find it on Drea's X account. That's Drea Humphrey, her name on X. So that's the RCMP and the police liaison team. That's PLT. Drea thinks they're there doing surveillance to show how many people are on site before the CFIA hitmen, as Drea calls them, show up to exterminate these perfectly healthy animals, expropriate the animals from rightful owners. I think they're just testing the waters of what's going on there. So I'm very glad that Dre is there, that she caught that she is there to show, like, the owners are being cooperative. This should not be a standoff, and I don't think it is a standoff. It's more of like a ostrich Woodstock at this point, because like the CFIA says they are going to exterminate these perfectly healthy birds. Well, they're not going to do it without the world watching, and maybe that will cause them to back off. But I guess the fact that the RCMP have showed up to case the joint, I think that they are going to be making their moves pretty soon.
And, Sheila, I saw a familiar face there. The fellow who drives around in the bus that makes bubbles.
Oh,
which,
speaking of COVID-19 characters, hey?
Oh, yeah. Somehow we got all the way over there. And, it's amazing, again, with the double standard, triple standard of law enforcement. I remember during COVID, him being arrested for blowing bubbles, and it wasn't even Officer Bubbles that arrested him. But my 2 points about that interaction, there he is. There you go. I think it's Jim.
Yeah, it's wild.
But my 2 points is, where's the liberal gun grab when you really need it? And secondly, do you think the RCMP began their investigation or their encounter with the ostrich people with a land acknowledgement that went on for about 4.5 minutes?
Yeah. I don't blame these guys. Like they said, they've just been sent there.
Yeah.
With like no instruction, and I want to believe them. I think by and large, especially the RCMP who work in these rural parts of Canada, they are members of the community. Many of them are firearms owners and aficionados on their own time. Many of them are farmers and livestock owners, just members of the community. They don't want to be a part of this. I'm sure they don't.
And you know what, Sheila? That lady in the flannel who was speaking to the police officers, obviously a subscriber to your strategy, kill them with kindness.
Completely.
She was super friendly. She wasn't flashing the finger. Well, then again, she wasn't at a Mark Carney rally. Was just getting applause for those police officers. And that's the way to do it,
Yeah, of course it is. Her problem is not with these cops.
Yep.
And her problem is with the government that thinks that it can do whatever it wants, science be damned. And I'm glad that she is, and from the very beginning, she has really tried to bring the heat down, because people are really passionate about this stuff. And a lot of people are still mad about COVID, and they are directing that aggression at the CFIA now. And she's really trying to just bring it down. This is not about personal grievances or anything like that. This is about her trying to keep her birds alive against a state that wants to kill them at the end of the day.
Here's the big question. In the end game, how does this play out? Is the CFIA going to, as Drea called them, bring their hitmen along, which might be a dangerous situation if you have demonstrators, because then you're going to have to bring law enforcement along to give an order to cease and disperse or get arrested? Or are they going to, because this is getting international headlines, are they going to call this off and just move on?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how the government comes out of this looking okay. Like the federal government.
Oh, I think if you call it off, I think
if you back off and you say, like, look, we've examined our policies, we need to reconsider.
Yeah.
These birds are used for research with Japan. That's the only way out of this, because if they come in and strong arm these people and kill these birds, what an absolute nightmare. Like, this is so bad that David Eby, the NDP, civil liberties stomping premier of BC, is like, this is a bad idea. Feds, don't do this.
And Sheila, can you please, because this was news to me in the morning meeting earlier today, you would think PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, would be all over this, like a fat boy on a Smartie. But according to your information, that isn't the case. Please tell our viewers what you know about that.
As an animal-based, largely carnivore dieter. Although, sometimes some of those toxic vegetables sneak in, just not the starchy ones. I pay close attention to PETA, also as a farmer. And the PETA, they run kill shelters because they don't believe that animals should be owned by people. Their philosophy is that animals are better off dead than in captivity. And they would consider these research birds, and they're not poking and prodding the birds, by the way, they're taking their eggs and using those in research. So if it were up to PETA, they would euthanize all these birds to put them out of their misery because they're being used as research birds. So that's why the animal rights activists are not getting involved, because they would do the same, but for different reasons.
Sheila, I believe that to be the case because I know PETA's stance, say, on seeing eye dogs for the blind is that
right.
That should be banned. That should not be allowed. And about 10 years ago, when there was a Toronto garbage strike during the summer, and it went on for months and months, and the city was using tennis courts to dump, to have residents bring their garbage and dump it there. It was a festering mess. And of course, what happened was that turned into Metropolis for rats. And then when the strike was settled and it was time to remove all those garbage bags, thousands and thousands of garbage bags from the tennis courts, there was the rat situation. And I phoned PETA in Washington. It was a goof call. And it was basically that there are people that are concerned about the lives of the rats that now live in the garbage in the tennis courts. I thought I was going to have someone say, "Oh, come on, get serious," or they were going to hang up on me. No, they were on Team Rat. We have to do something to save the rats, but not the ostriches, not the seeing eye dogs. This organization is insane.
Yes, no, they're lunatics. They actually are anti-human crazy people, which is why they want you to eat a diet that is not optimal for you, so that you always feel bad and terrible, is because your human suffering is worth it for the animals. Like, they want you to be deficient in all the things that make you feel okay. They want you to be unable to think because you don't have any DHA or B12. They want you to be weak and your skin to be gray and your nails to be brittle and your hair to fall out and your reproductive health just be in the garbage can, as long as the animals are okay. And obviously I disagree with it. Obviously I love my animals. I don't think you should ever eat an animal that suffered. But I'm definitely no animal rights activist. Let's get to a couple of chats, and then let's go into the Toronto nonsense.
Please.
Because we talked about it at the top of this show. So the Rise of the Phoenix says, as a common man, is there anything we could do to hold our government accountable? I believe it's everybody's job, not just MPs or opposition. Well, there's plenty that you can do. I don't know where you are if you're in Alberta. If you're in Alberta, there's likely a referendum coming. That sort of thing scares the daylights out of governments, because that citizen-led initiative isn't just used for the purposes of separation. You can use it to recall your politicians. Actually, that's a great thing that you could do. Push your local government, your provincial government for recall legislation, and make sure that the bar is not so high that it is insurmountable. That is one thing that will compel a government to be responsive to you in between election periods, which seems to be the only time they care about what you think.
And how about this, Sheila? Support independent media. Because the legacy media, as our boss says, or likes to say, they've gone from the watchdogs to the lapdogs, but not us and some of our, can we call them competitors or friendlies, or I don't know what, but I mean, I think we lead the way. And I think an independent media is more important than ever. And make no mistake, they're coming for us, Sheila. They're going to try everything they can to shut us down. So any way you can support us is fantastic.
I think I would call them our peers in the independent media space, because I think while technically on paper there are competitors, we are the biggest. We are sort of the grandfather of them all.
Yeah.
And I think a rising tide floats all boats. It's not like the United States where they're completely saturated with right-wing media.
Yeah.
We don't have that here. We all have our little niches and our beats that we cover. So I think there's room for everybody and possibly more. Steve Jensen gives us $20 off topic, but it saddens me that Canada is no longer the place of common sense. I'm referring to the ostrich cull order in BC. Bureaucrats no longer represent its citizens. Alberta independence, yeah. In our new country, we won't be culling your ostriches. Unless we have like an annual ostrich hunt, we just like loose them and then we can hunt them like we do with pheasants. That would kind of be fun, but a little bit scary.
And what a statement, folks. Sheila has already declared her hatred for ostriches, but not on this file.
I'm becoming charmed by them. They're endearing to me now, the more I look at them. Even though their necks are really strangleable. They're like Canada geese, but way bigger with long legs. Alberta Dawn gives us $5 and says, Katie Hopkins did a great documentary, Plasmord, The Killing Fields, on the hate and danger of white farmers in Africa face. Yes, that is the documentary that she made with us. You can find it on our YouTube right now. I mean, you can go and look. And when she made that was a while ago. But I think it's more relevant than ever. Randy Albert gives us $5 and says, big pharmaceutical pays government to destroy ostriches. Pharma will lose billions. Follow the money. Yeah, that's what Drea thinks.
I think that connection is because I can't figure out what another answer is. Folks, educate me. What do you think is the real reason for getting rid of 400 perfectly healthy birds?
Well, and I'm just worried about the precedent that this sets for other things. Wait till they say, oh, we have a pandemic happening at the abattoir. We have to cull all the beef.
Yeah.
You know? Alex Greer gives us $6.99. I don't see a chat, but it says keep it up. And I don't know the other one. But David, if there's another one, let me know. David, let's talk about what's happening in Toronto, and then we have to do the Daily Cringe.
Yes.
Because the Daily Cringe is a real beaut. It'll make you crawl right out of your skin today.
Well, folks, for 19 months, we have seen the Toronto Police Service absolutely ignore the rule of law when it comes to that group. I call them the Hamasholes. These are the people who are pro-Hamas. They chant genocide. They display swastikas. Some of them cosplay as Sinwar, the mastermind of October 7th, 2023, largest group of Jews killed post-Holocaust. And nothing is done. Well, that's not completely true. Independent journalists are arrested. Peaceful counter-demonstrators are arrested. On cold days, sometimes the cops re-envision themselves as Uber Eats drivers and deliver them coffee and Timbits. And this has been going on week after week, month after month. It's usually the same losers, an apt word that Sheila uses. I don't think they have jobs, but they're getting paid by somebody, I'll tell you that much. They are well-funded. And I think we have some reports right now of, the police are not even hiding the fact that they're taking sides. There's a story right now of a Toronto police document where it accuses Israel of ethnic cleansing. What the blue hell? We also know a couple of months ago, 2 senior Muslim officers at the Toronto Police Service did a podcast where they said the silver lining of the October 7th massacre is that it's inspiring more people to convert to Islam. Now, that's since been torn down, but that went right through the chief's office, make no mistake. And now we have an incident. Our wonderful friend at the Toronto Sun, Joe Warmington, writes about this. The pro-Hamas demonstration prevented an ambulance carrying an 8-year-old child to hospital. They would not make way. Now, here's the other thing, Sheila, and it goes back to what they always say about Watergate. It's not so much the crime, it's the cover-up. In this case, it's both the crime and the cover-up. The police said, it wasn't a life-threatening event. Well, it turns out they didn't know that. They weren't in touch.
How would they know?
Yeah. They didn't know. Secondly, they said, well, if it had its light bar on, then we would have created a pathway through the mob, and that's what these people are. It's a mob. Well, too bad for video evidence, Sheila, because the light bar, and I think super producer Efren has it there.
Look at that.
I see lights. It looks lit up like a Christmas tree. It was also, according to Joe Warmington's column, they were making the whoop whoop siren sound, and there it is. How dare the Toronto police not only turn a blind eye to enforcing the law and ignoring the Criminal Code of Canada, but now they lie about their actions. And there you go. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think a video, Sheila, is worth 1,000,000 words. And the Toronto police have no idea, and I'm speaking to the brass now, of what you have done to your branding. Sheila, I am not kidding. Given their actions of almost 2 years now on this file, I have met family members and friends who now, I don't do this, I still back the blue. I know I'll get heat for that because without the cops, we have the rule of the jungle, we have chaos. But they refer to the cops as pigs. They are sick and tired of this shite show happening every weekend and sometimes more than every weekend. And here's my question to our audience, Sheila, and to you. If the last 19 months, if this mob was chanting death to blacks, death to Indians, death to gays, do you think the Toronto Police Service would tolerate this for one demonstration? Do you think so? So why the double standard? Why is it okay to chant genocide to the Jewish people, but if it was any other identity, it would be shut down immediately? This is shameful policing, Sheila.
How do you trust the cops who will testify in court when they flat out lie like this? How do you trust them to properly fill out a statement, to accurately record the details of your crime, to act on the crime that you are reporting when they will lie about this? They decided to even, they posted a statement to their social media pages that said an individual was taken to the hospital by ambulance. It was an 8-year-old. Paramedics took an alternative route to avoid demonstrators. No, they were forced to, because it is quite literally the police's job to clear a route for an ambulance. That's their job. The individual's life.
Evidence, and thanks to Steve at Documenting Reality for filming that, because you don't think the mainstream media is going to do their job and deliver this kind of exposure, because they're kind of on Team Hamas, as is the mayor, as is the chief, as is so many members of the brass. And this
is a disgrace. If I were the parent of this kid,
disgrace.
If I were the parent of this kid, I would be off the rev limiter. This statement is galling. We work closely with paramedics to ensure emergency access is maintained. No, the whole point was that emergency access was not maintained.
Yep.
And this is from the same people who said the convoy was blocking ambulances. Not even once. They kept a lane open. But an 8-year-old had to go the long way to the hospital because genocidal lunatics are running the streets in Toronto, and the police are perfectly fine with this. In fact, the police have a document which accuses Israel of ethnic cleansing. So when you think that this is just a one-of event where they got it wrong this one time, sorry, but we've got a few too many things, one-ofs, adding up to indicate a pattern.
And Sheila, it's not a one-off. There was an almost identical situation in that vicinity of downtown Toronto involving an ambulance that had to get to the hospital with a patient. And because the pro-Hamas people, it's 3:15, time to pray. That's fine. I enshrine your right to pray. And by the way, there was a mosque 5 minutes away. No, we're going to pray on the street. We are going to block the roads to emergency vehicles. And in the aftermath, the Toronto Police Service and the City of Toronto said they have a constitutional right to pray, which is true. You do not have a constitutional right to block the streets.
Right.
Absolutely, you do not. So stop lying and stop supporting this terrorist group.
Let's go to the Daily
Unbelievable.
Cringe.
What a disgrace. Look at
This
that.
this is terrible.
And if I'm there filming that, like I tried to last March, I get arrested. What's the charge? Obstruction. Yeah.
Right.
Me obstructing a prayer service on a public street. That's obstruction. Nothing gets through, not even a bicycle.
Yeah. Demke should be fired. Completely fired.
No,
This
but
is
he-
an
Sheila,
absolute disgrace.
He's doing the mayor's bidding. Remember, this is a mayor that didn't
I
even
know.
bother to go to the first anniversary of October 7th.
Right.
I wonder if she'll attend the second anniversary.
I don't know. She's too busy opening up toilets.
Yeah.
Like celebrating the opening of a toilet bowl. Speaking of cringe, which Olivia Chow is, let's wrap up the show. I think we caught up on all the chats.
Yep.
Let's wrap up the show as we like to do these days on something called the Daily Cringe. Let's watch it together and crawl right out of our own skins.
Oh, God.
Some carry hate. We carry the largest trans pride flag to ever be flown in a national park and unfurled it on the side of El Cap to prove a point that trans is natural. The Trump administration and transphobes would love to have you believe that being trans is unnatural, but species that can transition sexes can be found on every continent and in every ocean on planet Earth. So call it a protest, call it a celebration. We are bringing elevation to liberation. They try to erase us from government websites and education systems and libraries. So we raise this flag higher than ever before so every trans person knows that they have people that love them in their corner. The people united will never be defeated. Some carry hate.
Oh my
Sheila,
goodness.
I'm so offended. That wasn't the Pride Progress flag. Where's the purple flurple?
Stop it.
But really, that's old news. That's an outdated trans flag.
Well, imagine, like, we're lucky if, like, I'm outdoorsy, okay? I am outdoorsy. Do you think that I would even put on a full face of makeup, let alone an eyebrow, before I hiked a mountain? Probably not. But we are to believe that it is completely natural, according to that man, that you should, this is just something you see in nature. Climbing the side of a mountain. That's, you know what, that just screams natural to me.
Who is that man? Please, for the love of God, don't tell me he's an actual park ranger.
Oh, I'm sure not. And then he goes on to say, like, it happens in nature when to have species change sexes. Now, normally it happens in the, like, gestational, or as is the case, the tadpole phase, when frogs change gender. I shouldn't say gender. I shouldn't say that it's sex. Gender is a made-up term. They change sex to deal with outside forces, whether it's pesticides, which are making the frogs gay, according to Alex Jones, or because of population pressures. But we don't have that problem. And the point is, we're not amphibians. We're human beings. And so to just say, like, it happens in nature, it's usually thanks to pesticides, which are unnatural in nature. So this person just debunks their own point.
And Sheila, why now as the timing for this? Because we're not in June yet. And I know Pride Day became Pride Week, became Pride Month, and now Pride Season. Or are we on the cusp of Pride Year? These, abominable flags are going to be flying around the clock 24/7. Is that the deal?
I think that's where we're at. Because remember, it's Pride Season now, which used to be summer, but now it's bleeding into the spring also. Basically, when the weather warms up and the grass starts growing, get out your flag. start flying it, I guess.
Get out your flag and doff your clothes and march down Main Street because, well, at least in Toronto, the police aren't going to arrest you for indecent exposure. That they're special.
Well, and like to say like frogs are changing sexes, it's because of exposure to atrazine, which is like a pesticide, which means that it's a genetic harm, not just something that they felt like doing. The frog got in the water and it's like, you know what, I feel like a lady frog today. Let me put on a full face of makeup and jump from lily pad to lily pad. This is an external poison on the frog that caused the problem. Maybe we should be looking at environmental factors instead of just celebrating for 4 months straight.
Yeah, but you know what? Beyond that, Sheila, as I always say when it comes to these radical transitioners, who do you have more contempt for? The person dressing up as the opposite sex and pretending to be the opposite sex and very well likely might be mentally ill, or the enablers, right? They somehow got permission in that park to put up that flag.
I don't think they did. If I had to guess, I don't think they did.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I don't know how. I mean, that's a major operation. But here in Ontario, let's talk about that incident that happened just a few weeks ago, where the Ontario Court of Appeal allowed. It's a person. They go by numerous pronouns. He's actually biologically male, but he's kind of transitioning to female, so he needs an operation to have a fake vagina constructed in his groin. Gosh. But wait a minute, he still wants to keep the penis, right? I mean, like, for God's sakes, pick a lane. First of all, there's no clinic in Ontario nor Canada that can do this operation. Evidently, there's one in Texas. And the Ontario Court of Appeal ruled unanimously that KS, we don't know this man's name, just the initials, KS, has every right on the taxpayer dime to be flown down to this Texas clinic where Dr. Frankenstein can do his work. And what I say, Sheila, this is purely cosmetic stuff happening here. If you were a woman, a heterosexual woman that wanted a boob job, if you're a guy that wants, a nose job, but you're not identifying as the opposite sex, guess what? That's elective surgery. You pay the freight. You play the trans card on the house. This is garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it's trans supremacy so often. You know, like they're the better version of the female, can't you see? They're better at it than we are.
Yeah.
And the government enables them. The biggest enablers are governments.
But Sheila, with this individual, what do you call that humanoid with both the genitals of a male and a female? I mean, doesn't that speak to the need for some psychiatric counseling?
Yes. Yeah, of course, yes. Of course. Of course. I'm trying to keep us on YouTube. If I had to guess, he said El Cap, so what I'm assuming that's the one El Capitan in Yosemite and not the one that's in Montana. Okay. But it's still in a national park, which means I doubt they got permission from the federal government.
We need to look into that.
I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they didn't. Okay, I think that's it. I think we're all caught up. We did the Daily Cringe. We're still on the air for now. I think we hit everything that was on the YouTube description. So David, I'll let you sign off.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sheila, for your co-hosting.
We got one chat that just came in. Sorry, okay. David. Nana Awake gives us $10. I wouldn't want to miss Nana's. She is a regular viewer, a regular supporter of the work that we do. She said, just wondering how Hamas will handle the stolen pride parade of nude men. That might be fun to watch. Again, you want to hear about me cheering for mutually assured destruction when the Hamas parade runs up to the Pride parade during June. I hope David Menzies is there to catch it all.
You know what? I think I might be on the Rebel cruise, Sheila, to tell you the truth. But we know how this plays out.
Right.
It's already happened. The Hamas people blocked the intersection, and the LGBT, XYZ, LCBO, BMO, RBC community just kind of like stood around going, "Oh, gee, what a bummer, man." So the people I would love to interview in that kind of situation, Sheila, are those who are part of the organization Queers for Palestine. Kind of like chickens for Colonel Sanders.
Right.
Like, what side do you pick, right?
Right. Well, if they're so for Palestine, they should go give it a whirl, because we know the queers in Palestine like to go to Tel Aviv so they don't get murdered.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, here's a money-saving tip for Queers for Palestine that want to go to Palestine or want to go to Gaza. Just buy a one-way ticket. You ain't coming back alive, because your next flight is off of a tall building to your death. That's the hard reality here.
It's usually dragging them behind motorcycles over there.
Oh, is that? I didn't know that. Is that the dragging behind?
Yeah, that's the preferred way, from what I understand.
I prefer to fall to my death. What do you think, Sheila?
Do you know what? I think I need to be in a meeting right now. 3 minutes ago. David, please wrap up the show.
Okay, thank you so much, Sheila. And thanks to super producer Efren. Thank you to all our generous viewers that made a donation. We really appreciate that. I will be back with Sheila on Friday. I'm not sure who will be here tomorrow, but you'll get your money's worth. In the meantime, as always, folks, stay safe and stay sane.